Thank you, praise band, for leading us in worship today and singing and being here together. Excuse me, I took a drink of water and have a little bit of tickle in my throat. Let me take another drink of water, I think, here. Try to clear it out just a little bit. I hope that makes it better, not worse. Man, Memorial Day weekend, and what a beautiful weekend. We come together. It's always the last Monday in May. And it was first called Decorations Day and began shortly after the Civil War, but in 1971 they made it an official holiday, calling it Memorial Day. And many of us will be celebrating or remembering Memorial Day by visiting cemeteries and memorials to honor those who died while serving in the U.S. military. And other people will go around to the different graves and place flags on the tombs. And some of you may have seen, have anyone seen the red poppy flower around anywhere? Has anyone seen that? That's also, you'll see there, Carol had one. And we couldn't find it today, and I wanted to show it to you, but red poppy flowers sort of as a semblance of Memorial Day and remembering. But because as the name alludes to, Memorial Day is about remembering, all right? About remembering. Remembering men and women who willingly were ready to sacrifice their lives for us. And out of that willingness to sacrifice their lives for us, even come to the point of giving all that they had, their very lives. And we remember them, but not only them, we remember their families. You know, we remember the families, the mothers, the fathers, the husbands, the wives, the children. Remembering them on this day as it's going to be a hard weekend for them. Remember them in their loss because it's their sacrifice too. And as you all know, I was in the military and Army Reserves for many, many years, and I always found there were a number of reasons why people join the military. All kinds of different motivations. Some joined the military to see the world. Others, they wanted to be more disciplined. They needed discipline. Their lives were chaos or disarray. They wanted to know what discipline was like. Still others for the adventure or educational benefits or for the career opportunities or for the camaraderie, or they joined the military for the hua factor. You know, everybody know what the hua factor is? The hua factor is the be-all you can be and then some factor in the military. You know, they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves, and they wanted the esprit de corps, the motivation, everything that the military involves. But every so often I'd come across a soldier who joined the military for a greater purpose, a greater reason. They joined the military out of love. In fact, a lot of soldiers join the military out of love for the country, out of love for our freedom, out of love for their families, for their children. And this love was so intense that it led them to then be willing to risk their lives for those they love the most. And Jesus knew about this sacrificial love. He knew what this meant. Because of love, Jesus was willing to sacrifice his position in heaven and step out of heaven and step into humanity and take on skin and walk among us. Because of love, Jesus, even when he was here, he could have lived a life of obscurity, you know, in a home that was safe. And instead of confronting the brokenness of all humanity. You know, Jesus, because of his love, took the nails for us so that we can one day reach out and embrace and know what that love is. He took the nails for us out of his love for us. You know, Jesus knew about sacrificial love. In fact, he set the example for us what that means and looks like as he lived it out in his life. In the years about 33 AD, Jesus is coming ever closer to his time here on earth. It will soon be ending. And he'll be going to the cross. And he gathers his disciples around him. And he gives them a challenge. A challenge to continue what he had begun. And it's a challenge of love. It's a challenge to receive his love, but then also a challenge to share his love. As we pick up in John chapter 15, verse 9, Jesus says to them, and to us, he says, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love." All right, Jesus is saying that he loves us just as much, to the same extent as God, his Father, has loved him. Well, how has God loved Jesus? If he loves us to that extent, well, what does that look like if it looks like the same love that God showed Jesus? Well, the Bible tells us that God loved his son Jesus, that he showed him all things that he had done and would do. That God loved his son, and he loved him so much that he placed everything in Jesus' hands. That God the Father loved his son so much that he loved him from the creation of the world itself, and he glorified Jesus in all things. And Jesus is saying that to the same extent that my Father showed me, gave me, and glorified me, to that same extent I show you, I give to you, and I glorify you as well. And he says, "This love I give to you, so and then remain in my love." Well, who would want to remain in that kind of love, right? You know, a love that is giving, a love that is revealing, a love that is glorifying. Well, we would give our lives to be in that kind of love relationship. And in fact, Jesus did. And he says, remain in my love. You don't have to work for it. You can't earn it. There's nothing we can do to just go out and bring it. He says, just receive it. Open your arms and snuggle up in it, because it is wonderful. And it is amazing. And to experience this love, Jesus says the only thing that you need to think about doing is obey my commands. Remain in my love. Obey my commands. And you remain in my love. And notice, but it's obey my commands in the present. Obey my commands today. Obey my commands in this moment of time. Give your life to me now. And if you obey my commands today, now, and give your life to me now, then you will remain in my love in the future. I listened to mention Minister Erwin McManus, and he said something that really intrigued me a couple of weeks ago as I listened to one of his messages. He said, anytime you have a big decision to make, or any kind of decision, he said, before you make that decision, pause for just a moment. And he says, before you make that decision, think into the future. Think about, hey, if I make this decision, what is the future that I have out there for me? In other words, what is that person I want to become? Who's that man I want to be? What is that woman I want to look like? Who's this individual I want to be out here in the future? And think about this decision. And will this decision that you are making today lead to that kind of man or woman you want to become in your future? And he said, if that decision will lead if that decision you present will lead to this person you desire and hunger to be in the future, then make that decision. But if it is not, if this decision does not lead to who you want to become in your future, then don't make it. And in the same way, Jesus is saying, if you want to have a future out here where you are remaining in my love, where you are understanding and feeling and live out of my love here in your future and your tomorrow, he said, then begin today to obey my commands today. Right now. This moment, because if you obey my commands here in your present, you will experience and remain in my love in your future, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands, and remain in his love. A number of years ago, our family was visiting Carol's parents, Lyda and Sue Green, in Zephyr Hills, Florida, outside of Tampa, Florida. And we owned a old Aerostar, Ford Aerostar minivan, a big box-looking thing. And it had 160,000 plus miles on it. And we were driving from Louisville, Kentucky, where we lived at that time, down to Zephyr Hills, Florida, to visit Carol's parents. And as I always did, I checked the van out, and everything seemed to be working well, and all the tires were good, and we got ready for a trip. So we took off the Boyd vacation, as we always do together. But we got about halfway down there, and the van started cutting out. I'm just driving along, and we would lose power. It just cut out, and we'd lose power. Going along, then it would kick back in, and we'd go along, and then it'd cut out and lose power. And man, so here we go, all the way from Louisville, Kentucky, down to Zephyr Hills, Florida, and never knowing if we're going to make it or not. And all the way, I'm sweating bullets. Dear God, just get us there, help us to make it. And well, we finally got down there and made it, and got set on for the evening. Well, the next day, my father-in-law lied and made an appointment with a Ford dealership that he always went to, who he knew personally, to fix our minivan. So we got up and took the van in, and they checked it out, and they said, well, your transmission's going out. I said, great. I said, how much is that going to cost? About $2,500. I said, $2,500? I don't have $2,500. I was, we were in seminary. I said, I don't have that kind of money. And Carol's dad, who was standing there with me, he said, son, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I said, wow. Well, they fixed our van. About 4 days later, we went to pick it up, and Lyden paid for it, and we were driving the minivan home from the Ford dealership to their folks' home. And before I even got it home, it started cutting out again. It started losing power. Doing exactly the same thing it was doing on the way home, on the way there from Kentucky. We did a U-turn. I did a U-turn right in the middle of the road and went right back to the dealership. Needless to say, I was in a very cheerful, happy mood at that moment in time. Well, they hooked it up, and they did a full analysis on it this time, and they said, oh, you need an engine tune-up, $245. I was livid. I was beside myself. I said, wait a minute, time out here. I said, I just paid you $2,500 to fix my transmission that wasn't broken, and you want me to pay you $245 more to get a tune-up? I said, I'll tell you what, I've got a better deal than that. I'll make you a deal. You give me back my $2,500, and I'll be happy to pay you the $245 for a tune-up. I said, how about that? And we were going head-to-head with the dealership. And Dad said, Scott, take it easy, son. He said, I will take care of this too. My father-in-law, because of his love for me and in my family, was willing to pay everything, to do anything he needed to do for us. All I had to be willing to do was accept his love and open my arms to his desire to bless us and accept it. And so it is with Jesus. See, the reason Jesus challenges us to receive his love is so that we can then go and share his love. Verse 11. And Jesus says, I've told you this so that my love may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. You know, our relationship with Jesus is never just an end in itself. It is not a relationship where Jesus loves us, we receive his love, and then we love Jesus, and then we build a campfire, and we hold hands, and we sing Kumbaya the rest of our lives. Jesus' love for us was meant for us so that we could share others. In fact, his love for us is so overwhelming, we can no more contain Jesus' love in our lives than a thimble could hold the waters of Niagara Falls. It comes to us and it just overflows us to those around us. And you see, that was the intent of his love for us, not just for us, but for others. You know, the Bible does not say, for God so loved only Scott Boyd that he gave his only begotten Son. No, the Bible, if I remember correctly, says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. You know, God's love was meant for us to flow out of us to the world around us by showing the world the same love that we have received from Jesus. And then Jesus elevates this love. Of all the kinds of love and all the way that we interact as human beings and how we are together, he takes this love, he said, this love, I want you to understand what this kind of love is. He says this love is defined, he says, greater love has no man than this, than no woman than this. Greater love has no one than this. This love that I give to you, that I want you to share with the world, this greater love has no one than this. Then they lay down their lives for their friends. See, it's the kind of love that where we are willing to risk our lives and lay down our lives for our friends, for those around us, the same people that Jesus was willing to lay down his life for and give all that he had for. It was February 2nd, 1943. World War II was raging at that time. And the SS Dorchester was one of 3 ships in a convoy crossing the Atlantic Ocean between Newfoundland and bound for a naval station there in Greenland. It had 902 service members on it. And it was 150 miles from its destination. When around midnight, the boat was torpedoed by a German submarine. And the torpedo exploded in the side of the SS Dorchester way below the waterline. And upon impact, dozens of soldiers, servicemen died, and others were severely wounded. And as water began to fill the boat, panic broke out. In the dark, they were screaming, and grown men were crying. They were trying to find their way around, and no one could see, and no one knew what was going on. And all they were concerned about was saving their lives and trying to get the lifeboats into the water. And it was just pandemonium. But then 4 servicemen began to go among the sailors to calm them, to try to show them a safe place, to help bring some kind of sanity out of all the chaos. They were 4 Army chaplains. Army Chaplain Lieutenant George Fox, a Methodist. Lieutenant Alexander Good, a Jewish rabbi. Lieutenant John Washington, a Roman Catholic priest. And Lieutenant Clark Poling, a Dutch Reformed minister. And quickly and quietly, they began to move the men and holding them and being with them. But then the chaplains finally got to the top side of the boat, and they got to a storage locker, and they were able to open the storage locker, and they began distributing out life jackets to all the servicemen and sailors that were there, giving them life jackets out. And then Engineer Grady Clark saw a most amazing thing. As they were giving the life jackets out, they ran out of life jackets. And then one by one, the chaplains took off their life jackets and gave to 4 young men who needed it. One survivor of the incident said that this was the most amazing thing he'd ever seen or ever hoped to see this like that. But as the boat was gaining water, one of the survivors in the life craft and the lifeboats looked back up on the deck of the boat. And he saw the 4 chaplains, arm in arm, singing praises and offering up prayers. You know, Chaplain Poling, before he boarded the boat back in January, had written a letter to his father asking his father to pray for him. And he asked his dad to pray. He said, "Not for my safe return, that would not be fair. Just pray that I shall do my duty, never be a coward, and have the strength, courage, and understanding of men. Just pray that I shall be adequate." And they were. And they were. And Jesus ends this passage with these words. This is my command. This is my command. To love each other. Jesus calls us to a greater life, a greater hope, a greater future, a greater love. But we are only able to express this greater love of Jesus as we receive his love first in us. This is something that is not humanly possible. This is something that is above, out of our ability to bring about in ourselves. It is only as we first receive his love, this love where he went to the cross, this greater love where he hung there, took the nails for us on the cross, that we receive this greater love. And he says, greater love hath no man than this, that he laid out his life for his friends. It's only as we first receive this love that we have any hope of ever sharing this love the way it needs to be shared. By opening up our hearts and opening our lives and just say to Jesus, Jesus, I give you my life. Jesus, I give you my life. And receive his love as his life comes into you and his life becomes your life. And his hope becomes his hope and his love becomes your love. Just open ourselves to this greater love. And then share his greater love with his world. So that, like these 4 chaplains, we too will be found adequate as we give our lives to Jesus. Dear God, greater love, that's absolutely true. Greater love has no one than this. Then they lay down their lives for their friends. And dear God, you have shown us this greater love. You have lived this greater love, and you have died this greater love. And then you gave your life for us. Dear God, help us to open our lives to that love, to receive it, to live it. To follow you in our present so that we can experience and remain in your love in our future. And be found adequate. Dear God, thank you for this time we've had. Go with us. Remain with us as we remain with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for sharing your time with us and for worshiping with us this morning. Man, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next Sunday morning.